Operation Domination is underway. The ultimate game plan to dominate your NFL experience. With your hosts, Dan
you gotta be confident about your Achilles when you
Chase
show
Thornton,
Yeah, I mean, I got it.
and Adam LaRue. Don't hope to be great and dominate.
Well, gobble, 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 gobble. Thanks for coming into Operation Domination for the Thanksgiving week, all week. And that's why you're getting this episode a day early. As always, I'm your host, Dan Mater, joined here with the full crew, Adam LaRue and Chase Thornton. You can catch Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app. And I would typically lead that up with, you can find our video content on the Fantasy Football Advice Network channel. But someone hacked in and deleted it. We are in the process of trying to recover with YouTube. The fact that we did not delete our own channel. Someone definitely hacked in. They knew we were coming. We've been up and coming, and someone just they wanted to take our legs out from under us and try to throw us to the wolves here. But we will still have our video content available to you guys. So I don't know how many of you know this, but I do have my own YouTube channel, Fantasy Football with Dan Mater at Dan Mater FF. So until that comes back, our episodes on Operation Domination will be available on YouTube there. And of course, I'll be posting on social media at Dan Mater FF everywhere as well. Okay, so now I got that out of the way because I want to make sure you guys know where you can find us at. It's very important. We do have the Week 13 preview. We have 3 games on Thanksgiving plus the game on Friday. So while it's fun having these holidays, it does kind of make it a little bit hell when you're trying to set your lineup because we have a lot of injuries, which I'll talk about with Dr. Brian Scott tomorrow. Don't worry, that episode's not going anywhere. You're going to get that a day early as well. But it makes everything a freaking disaster. And you have to figure out, okay, do I play this guy here, this guy here? I got 18 people who are playing early now this week. I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? It drives me kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's always fun when you get, we finally don't have a Europe game, but now we've got to deal with having 3 games on Thursday and a game on Friday that's weirdly kind of thrown in there in case, you're not shopping.
3 o'clock.
Yeah,
Pick one, either 1 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Why is it 3 o'clock? Why? In the middle
Trying to
of
let people get home from getting all their Black Friday, beat downs taken care of, I guess. I don't know. But the weird thing is we'll talk about, DFS a little bit later, but it's hard. You can't really get a good slate with the Friday game included, which kind of sucks. Cause it has potential to be a juicy fantasy game with Chicago and Philadelphia.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You pretty much have to treat that like a Monday night or a Thursday night game, which is basically, a little showdown game.
Yeah, it's going to be on its own or on DraftKings. You can combine it with the Thursday night game. You cannot get, at least they weren't offering earlier today. And we are taping this a little earlier, because I'm old, recording this a little earlier than we normally do in the week. But yeah, you can't just do all 3 Thursday games and the Friday game and do a little 4 game. They don't have that available to you on DraftKings. It's either all 3 Thursday games or the Thursday night and Friday night game. And so, like you said, you kind of have to treat it like a one-off Thursday or Friday night or Monday night game.
And that's DraftKings dropping the ball. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make any sense. Just lump it all together. It's all part of the Thanksgiving special. Lump it in on the Friday. You have tournaments that are Sunday and Monday. You can include those 2 days. Why can't we include Thursday and Friday? I don't know. Whatever.
That's how we normally format it here. When I'm looking at the DFS slate for our purposes, we always combine everything on Sunday except for they don't include the early games from Europe, but we always combine Sunday and Monday. Why they wouldn't have gone with the 4 game slate total is beyond me, but such is life, and we'll be thankful that at least there's football to watch and that we are all, capable of watching it.
Well, because I was going to say, Adam, on the flip side of this, Thursday gets to turn into a little mini Sunday, right? Because you do have football all day. It's only 3 games, but instead of sitting there watching Red Zone and having it like me, I have a separate TV where I try to catch all the games I want to on top of it. You can actually sit there and just watch each game individually. Now, do you enjoy that more or you enjoy Red Zone more?
I mean, it depends. I wouldn't want to do the 1 game at a time every week, but I love Thanksgiving, specifically Thanksgiving football. Just the all right, you guys go do all the like talking amongst family, whatever. I'm just gonna go like be on the couch and
It's a great way to avoid those political conversations that are no
yep.
doubt.
So someone starts talking about their opinion. I'm like, nope, couch, see ya.
I know I never see you guys, and there's probably a reason for that. So I'm not going to see you today either. I'll be in the other room.
I'll be there at dinner and then back to sports ball.
You want to sit on the couch? Sure, why not? Otherwise,
let's just try to line it up with halftime.
All right. Well, that's enough Thanksgiving jibber jabber. Let's get into this thing here. We got star sick questions that we got to talk about, and kicking off with a big one because we have big news with Alvin Kamara being injured. We don't know if he's going to come back this week or at all this season. Frankly, we'll get into that with Dr. Brian Scott tomorrow. But the first question is Devin Neal or Chris Rodriguez, and this struck me because I'm like, dude, this is definitely a decision people are having to make, and it kind of sucks that you're in this situation because remember, no one's on bye this week. Like, I don't know why the NFL did it that way, but nobody's on bye. So everyone who's healthy should be available to you. And yet I know I know there's a number of people dealing with this type of decision. So Devin Neal or Chris Rodriguez as his RB2 or flex in a full PPR league. Where would you guys fall on this, Chase?
For me, this is going to be Neal, even if Kamara does somehow as a miracle, Thanksgiving miracle, play this weekend. Kamara's got that sprained MCL. Typically, everything I've seen, everything I know about it says it's a multi-week timeline. But even if he does play, I mean, you're talking about Rodriguez, who barely leads. He led that committee last week pretty handily, but he barely leads a bad committee at running back against what's going to be the best defense in the league against the run this year. Denver only allows 3.6 yards per attempt to opponents. That's the best in the league there. I don't want anything to do with that, to be dead honest with you there. Now, Neal, on the other hand, is facing Miami, who sucks. They give up the ninth most points to opposing running backs. He took over pretty completely in terms of running back after Kamara went down. Their other option would be Audric Estime. We all know how I feel about Audric Estime. Yes. Yeah. Woohoo. Right. Notre Dame guy. You could be thrilled about him all you want. I'm thrilled that I don't have to necessarily deal with him for fantasy anymore, but yes. Right. Now, Shuck can and will run. Yes. And yes, Taysom Hill does exist, but Taysom Hill went 10 rushes for 17 yards last week. He was not necessarily the most effective weapon that they could have. And he's about 397 years old by this point. Neither one of those guys is going to get serious run between the 20s like Neal is. And Neal has the juice that he can break it. So for me, I don't care if Kamara somehow does pull off the Thanksgiving miracle. It's Neal all the way for me.
You see that the same way, Adam?
More or less. Like if Kamara plays, then do what you got to do. If Kamara plays, you're genuinely projecting 6 points for either of these running backs. I am dead serious. You're projecting 6 points. So Devin Neal's the only one that in any world has upside, but the reality of the situation is Chris Rodriguez only gets points if he scores a touchdown right now, and Devin Neal only gets points right now if he is catching the ball. Those are how both of them get points. If Kamara plays, Devin Neal won't catch the ball. If Chris Rodriguez playing a good defense, probably not getting the end zone. What are you going to do? I really hate if you're in this position. And as a enjoyer of good football and as someone who has appreciated Alvin Kamara over a long period of time, I hope Alvin Kamara plays. But if you're in this position, you should be hoping that Alvin Kamara does not play. That is the only world that you're seeing double digits out of either of these players.
It took some interesting work to get yourself in this position too, to be honest with you here. I mean, like you said, Dan, nobody is on bye this week. So there's literally every player who's healthy in the league is available, period. If you're down to trying to make a decision between Devin Neal and my man Rodriguez there in Washington, holy cow, dude, you must have gone serious zero or hero RB and had a big time Bucky Irving type situation.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I mean, I'm on the Devin Neal thing. The Chris Rodriguez is so bad. He only has one game this entire season where he's been targeted. One.
But it was this last week.
It was.
Hey, recency bias.
Yeah, I mean, 4% target share. your PPR league, that alone, at least Devin Neal had 7 targets. He had the 5 catches. He had the 43 yards. It wasn't great on the ground, but if he's going to be involved in the passing game in Kamara's absence, which it does look like he's going to be, especially in a full point PPR league, that takes it for me. I'll put this out there. Devin Neal is my RB30 for the week, and Chris Rodriguez is my RB34. So RB3 flex plays if that's where you have to go. I do want to mention real fast, though, Miami's defense over the past 3 weeks has actually been a lot better. So I don't want people to think that, oh, it's Miami. It's obvious. Like Devin Neal has this huge ceiling. They've been better over the past 3 weeks, actually. It's still not a matchup that scares me. Don't get me twisted here. But, just wanted to lay that out there. I'm not expecting some big matchup boost as much as people would think it would be from what Miami was earlier in the season. Our next question coming up, though, and this player is going to be talked about a couple times. All right. So Luther Burden, who finally looks like he's cemented as the wide receiver 3 for the Chicago Bears over Olamide Zaccheaus. I can't believe it took 12 weeks for that to happen, but it did. So here we are. So this person's asking, is he a startable wide receiver 3/flex play over someone like Jayden Reed when he comes back, I guess, now that his role is growing, or is he still just a boomer bust stash? So we're talking rest of the season here. So Adam, how do you see this? Luther Burden, is he a wide? Focus more so on the wide receiver 3 flex, and then you can throw in Jayden Reed if you want to.
For me, like as far as Luther Burden, I don't see it yet. I think he could get there. I think he actually probably will get there by the end of the season, but I don't think I'm ready to make that claim now. Candidly has to pass DJ Moore in terms of target share in that offense. Maybe not snap count, but target share at the very least, because DJ Moore has been the 2 and has not been getting enough. The only guys at any point catching the ball and that have been fantasy relevant have been Colston Loveland and Roma Dunze. I think that Luther Burden
DJ Moore had 2 touchdowns this past week. Thank you.
Consistently. Consistently.
I know.
So, like, as far as wanting to start him, I think Burden will probably get there just because I think that has to be a role for him. And they throw the ball enough. Not a lot, but enough. They're right in the middle of the pack. I think they're like 17th in the league in pass attempts. So they're right there where there's enough volume for another option to emerge, especially like tight end has been kind of hit and miss. But to say he's there now, no.
Chase, how do you see this?
Well, is Ryan Flournoy a wide receiver 3 flex option week to week? No. Is DeAndre Hopkins at this point?
No.
De'Ami Brown?
No.
No, that's about where Luther Burden the 3rd is living, and it sucks because I loved me some Luther Burden in the draft process. I liked the landing spot for him, but honestly, he's a boom bust stash, and I don't even know if he's 100% worth a roster spot for the stash at this point in the season, to be dead honest with you. I mean, he's averaging 4.69 half PPR points per game. You take away the 65-yard touchdown he had all those, weeks ago, months ago at this point by now, and he's averaging 3.61 half PPR points a game. That is not going to do it for you. And outside of a handcuff running back, who else are you keeping on your roster that has that kind of a scoring profile week to week? Now, I know that we all liked him in the draft process and we all want to see what we want to see, but you got to look at reality. The gadgeting that we all hoped for with him and assumed was going to happen and was just going to blossom and make him, a fantasy piece. It just really hasn't happened much. And yes, he's got 5 targets each of the last 2 games, and that's great. But Chicago also, on top of things, has a terrible wide receiver schedule coming back up here for the rest of the remainder of the season. I'm not in on Luther Burden for the rest of this season. If and when they get rid of DJ Moore, I'll probably be back in on him, but that's not going to happen this season. He's just too big a risk. I think there are other things now that we're in the fantasy, season end game. I think there are other things you can do with your roster than stashing and praying against all evidence to the contrary that Luther Burden's going to be a usable piece. So he's boom bust, but I'm not stashing him.
Yeah, and I think all that's fair. I mean, I think the idea behind wanting Luther Burden to be more than what he is that people may try to make the argument that before the season's up, he does surpass DJ Moore. That's what you're hoping for if you're on the Luther Burden bandwagon. I'm with you guys. I don't know if that happens. And the emergence of Colston Loveland, I think even if he were to surpass DJ Moore, makes it kind of hard for him to still be consistently involved anyway.
Takes away the area of the field that we were thinking he was going to take in the first place.
Sure. Sure. Over the last 3 weeks, he has played more. He's played 61% of the routes. He's had a 17.5% target share. You know who that is? That is Jayden Reed, who this guy was asking about. Like that's who that is. Like 61% routes run. That's not good enough to be fantasy football viable week in, week out. 17.5% target share is not good enough to be viable week in and week out. It is boom or bust. Do I take Burden over specifically here, Jayden Reed? Probably, because the Packers are about to be in a 5-man wide receiver rotation when he comes back. But as far as like, do I really feel like I need to hold Burden? I mean, I guess it comes down to whether or not you have big rosters and stuff like that. But honestly, I'm kind of with you guys. I don't think this is somebody that I need to stash for a playoff run here in most leagues.
Speaking of Jayden Reed, though, I mean, you kind of just talked about the idea that Colston Loveland kind of took away the Luther Burden, or we kind of just alluded to the idea that Loveland took away the Luther Burden like role, or at least my opinion, the depth of the field. Reed, he's not really worth talking about until we can see him play, but there is opportunity there in that Packers offense with Kraft out. There's a ton of opportunity there. I think that there is. I think there is, because Musgrave has not taken that role. He just has not fit into that. Musgrave will play a much more tight endy role than what we were getting out of Tucker Kraft. But there is opportunity at that spot, at that depth of in the field, and the way that they use Tucker Kraft, there's opportunity to be had there that I think Jayden Reed can fill. And Green Bay has a nice, favorable wide receiver schedule coming up. There's opportunity there for Reed. I don't know that he grabs it. I don't know that he's healthy enough to grab it in time to actually do anything for your fantasy team. But honestly, between the two, I don't think I'm trying to be a Packer homer here. I'm trying to look at the situation as what we actually have seen these two do in their NFL careers. There's more opportunity for Reed to be impactful, I think, the last 4 or 5 weeks here than there is for Luther Burden.
Here's why I push back on that. Outside of Christian Watson, I don't know if there's a pathway for any Packer wide receiver to have that big of an impact. Jordan Love sucks. Right? I'm not saying he sucks forever. He sucks, period. I'm just saying right now, he sucks.
He's not playing well lately.
The past month has been dreadful, and they've had plus matchups that take advantage. They got another plus matchup coming up against Detroit on Thanksgiving. We'll see what he can do there. But my point more so bring that up is Jayden Reed, who had already been relegated to being a gadget guy. Matthew Golden, who suddenly can't get on the field now anymore. And they have Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and Tavian Wicks. Like I said, you have a 5-man wide receiver rotation. In theory, yeah, Tucker Kraft would open up opportunities. I don't think he does, because no one's running that role, and Jordan Love isn't feeding anybody.
But that's the thing, is that nobody's running that role, but they don't have Reed available yet. If and when Reed is available, I think they can at least plug him into some of what they were doing with Tucker Kraft. And I think that's more than one person.
To at least interesting piece is that the only world where the Packers offense gets right is if they figure out a short passing game.
Agreed.
If they want to be pretend to make the playoffs, actually, is they're third in the division, second in the division? Like, there are real questions about making the playoffs, because it's competitive for that last spot. The NFC North probably has 2 real questions. If they want to do that, you need a short passing game. End of conversation. And Jayden Reed is a potential avenue for that. Do I think he does it? Not necessarily, but if you want to solve that problem, he's got to be at least something you talk about.
I'm laying out opportunity and what ifs. And if we're talking about stashes for the rest of the season, it's all what ifs.
No, it is. And this is why we give a Packers fan on here, because I think the problem with everything you guys just said is Matt LaFleur has 0 balls, and he has made it very, very clear that he's a run-first coach right now, trying to hide the hell out of Jordan Love, and has no interest in making and opening up the passing game whatsoever. That's what I've seen. Yes, they haven't had Jayden Reed. Yes, losing Tucker Kraft was a big blow. You have pieces. You have weapons. Yeah. You paid Jordan Love $55 million. So the fact that you have all that in place and you're just like, we're run first. I don't care if it's Josh Jacobs. I don't care if it's Emmanuel Wilson. Hell, God help me, if it has to be Chris Brooks, fine. Like that's what's going on right now with the Packers. And that's why I don't trust they just turn this thing around. It's been ugly for a while now. And it just seems like that's the philosophy he's taking in. We have a great defense, and he wants to do everything he can to let his defense win the game when and if at all possible. And maybe 2 comes out of the NFC North. It might be 3 out of the West and 1 out of the North. And that's how it's set up right now. It's competitive right now with that wild card spot in the NFC. It's a little nutty, but we'll find out. Not bad arguments on your part as far as like Jayden Reed and Luther Burden, but it's just I don't know. I don't trust the Packers offense right now.
Neither of them is more than
I don't either.
Is where we land.
No, I agree. I trust the Bears offense and Ben Johnson more. I trust the Packers offense at the moment. I think that's kind of where I fall on that one. But let's talk about another one. So talk about Luther Burden. He comes up again in our next question. Who's the best wide receiver stash for fantasy football playoffs? Luther Burden, Chimere Dike, John Metchie, who won't die, and Jayden Higgins.
Hey, give it all he's overcome. I'm glad he's not. Yeah.
I'm happy for him too, but my God, the fact that I'm bringing up John Metchie in week 13.
Right. Fantasy-wise,
what are we doing? Anyway, so I'll say it again. Who's the best wide receiver stash for fantasy football playoffs? Luther Burden, Chimere Dike, John Metchie, or Jayden Higgins? Obviously, this is probably more a deeper league type of situation. So, Adam, I want to go with you first. Who's your stash?
Higgins by far is one.
I agree.
He might actually be a real piece in like real leagues. And then after that, we're having like deep league conversations, as you alluded to. To me, it's Metchie next. He's someone who the profile coming out was great.
Metchie number 2 on this list.
Yeah, to me.
Woo.
I liked him a lot coming out of college.
Me too,
I feel like he's been in log jams the whole time. He obviously had the cancer thing that he overcome, and we're past that now. And he's in a spot where he is the only receiver. Like it's him and Mason Taylor. Donnie Mitchell's technically getting targets, but he catches like 1 out of every 4. So like I liked Mitchell a lot coming out as well. So this isn't some kind of bias. I did not give up on him when he left. I was actually hoping it'd be fruitful, but alas. But at any rate, and then I have Burden and Dike kind of there together. It's tough. Dike on one side, like maybe there's a little bit more upside. The Titans are bad and they don't throw a lot. And when they do throw, it doesn't seem to matter. He's had some good point games, but he's also had like 2-point games mixed in with them.
Sure.
Maybe there's a world where Luther Burden becomes something consistent. Maybe there's not. The point is, I don't know if either of those guys you're going to trust week in and week out versus I think Metchie could become a trustable starter in a deep league. Higgins, I think, could become a trustable starter in any league. So I think those guys have like week to week, like something real. And
our pets' heads are falling off.
Oh, dude, if this was a 1-week question, because I could tell you hate John Metchie, Dan, and I don't know why. I don't know what he did to you.
No. This is not a hate John Metchie thing. This is not. This is 100% I am a big fan of Chimere Dike.
I like him too. He's an ex-Badger, and I'm thrilled with what he's done. And in terms of the player that he is showing that he is in the NFL,
You really claim he came out of Florida. He didn't do anything in Wisconsin, which is why he had to go to Florida.
He didn't really do a whole hell of a lot in Florida. He had 1 year where he kind of did something. He was a Badger before he was a damned Gator. And either way, he went to Madison, and I'm thrilled to see Chimere Dike doing something somewhere, even if it's not Wisconsin.
In Dynasty, I'd rather have Dike than Metchie. To be clear,
yes.
The problem is the Titans are 29th in passing yards,
and that's the only reason he comes up. And he comes up last for me on this list after I just ripped the hell out of Luther. No, dude, listen.
They just made a switch at quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we're throwing for 140 yards instead of 55 yards. Give me a break.
Well, the completion percentage is up, and he's the one being targeted.
Adam is right on this that it's Higgins, then Metchie, then ever so slightly Burden, and then Dike. And the only reason that Dike comes in last is because he's on that horrific Tennessee offense right now. Metchie, I agree with you, Adam. There is a pathway to a role here or there's a pathway to usefulness in Dynasty here. Of all of them, Higgins has been the one that's been most consistently good. And I think we all agree he's the best player of the 4 and the one we would all want on our rosters the most. But since Metchie got to New York, he's actually scored some points. He's only scoring 3.1 points per game on the season, but since he got to New York, he's averaging 9.2 points a game. And that honestly actually only came down to 2 games because his first game, he only scored 0.1 half PPR point. They have used him these last 2 weeks. Now, Garrett Wilson is coming back, which may take away some of those looks, but I don't think it does because I think they can use Wilson on one side. I think they can use Metchie in different areas, and they still have Adonai Mitchell who can run the treadmill routes all week long. So it's Higgins for me because I think he's the best player on probably, weirdly enough, the best. Well, I don't know. He's not on the best offense because Chicago's the best offense, but we already talked about Burden and how he's languishing on that offense. It's Higgins, then Metchie. If you're going to stash somebody, if DK was anywhere but Tennessee, I'd love him as much as you.
All right.
Why do you hate John Metchie?
I'm going to give you guys one guess to this next question. Over the last 4 weeks, which of these wide receivers average the most points per game?
I mean, it's either Higgins or DK. I know DK has had big games. The problem is between them, he has 2 points.
It's DK.
That's an unfair question because Metchie has only been in his current situation. He hasn't been in his current situation for all 4 weeks.
Even if it was DK scored more than Metchie has last 2 weeks. So if you want to make it 2 weeks, we can make it 2 weeks. My point is he's wide receiver 34 of the last 4 weeks. And I bring that up to bring this up. Of all these guys, and by the way, my answer is Higgins. I'll go into detail real quickly about that soon. But of all these guys, he's the only one who's wide receiver 1 on the team. Even Metchie split targets with Adonai Mitchell. They had the same amount of targets. DK now, Alik Eomanor, even if he comes back, because DK is running a slot, and Cam Ward is playing a little bit better over the past few games, it's been Jamiri DK, who has big playability, along with being the guy who's getting most of the mismatches because he's playing in the slot and being more readily available to the quarterback. So he has that over everyone in this scenario on a team that is constantly trailing from behind and playing in a negative game script to add in more volume. Now, the key to your guys' point is that Cam Ward has to be continuing to play better as he has the past couple of weeks since What's-His-Face got fired. I do say What's-His-Face on purpose because we don't need to talk about Brian Callahan ever again. But so he actually has that kind of going for him in a way. Now, the answer to this question is Jayden Higgins. He's with a better quarterback, a better offense. He's become the number 2 for Houston over the past 3 weeks. 58% of the routes. We need to see that get up to 70 before we actually start trusting him. But a 21% target share during that time, too. So things are starting to trend in a direction where Higgins could actually be relied on as a fantasy starter within that offense, especially with CJ Stroud starting to make his way back.
DK's had 2 useful games in the last 4 games. It was game 1 and game 4. The 2 games in between, he was absolutely untouchable in fantasy. So, I mean,
you're going to get that in Tennessee.
One of these guys is a hit or
John Metchie on the Jets, too. Newsflash for you. Like,
no, every single one of these guys is a hit or miss. It's a boom or bust. You're either going to get something maybe useful or you're going to get absolutely nothing. There's no in between. None of these guys is going to average 8-9 points a week and kind of keep you afloat.
Sure.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll end on is that with Higgins, he has the 4th best schedule for wide receivers rest of the way. Houston's got a nice schedule for wide receivers. So just kind of add that in. We all say Higgins. We just disagree about the rest of the order. We'll see how this breaks down. All right, let's talk about little tight ends, shall we? So Colby Parkinson, looking like he's making his way into the rotation as the top guy there with Tyler Higbee out, Chase's favorite player. And then he also wants to know, am I streaming him over Taysom Hill or Juwan Johnson, other low-end options now that Tyler Higbee is out? So, Chase, we'll go to you first. Colby Parkinson, or I'm looking at Colby Parkinson or Juwan Johnson. Taysom Hill's not really in my factor here.
No, and for me, it's still Juwan Johnson, just barely. I mean, when we look at Juwan Johnson's season, that early season volume he got the first month or so of the season, it probably wasn't going to be sustainable anyway, but he is still the rare, reliable receiving option in that New Orleans pass game there. He still is just as trustworthy as he ever was before. He had 7 targets last week. He scored a touchdown in 2 out of his last 3 games. Now, Parkinson has scored a touchdown in each of the last 3 weeks, but if you want to take that 3-game stretch where Parkinson has kind of come on, including last week when Higbee, who shall not be named, was out, Juwan Johnson has actually outscored Parkinson in the last 3 games, and he has the better 1-game high of the 3 games in that stretch. So if you're down to choosing or trying to stream, if you're a tight end streamer, which, okay, some people are, I think that's a losing proposition because you're crapshooting a crapshoot. But if you want to look at just this last 3-game stretch where Parkinson has been usable, Juwan Johnson has still outscored him and outperformed him and has the better one-off shot. If you're streaming, guys, what are you looking for but a one-off shot, right? So for me, it's still Juwan Johnson. It's just barely, and I'm probably allowing my anti-Higbee bias to creep into my perception of Colby Parkinson, because if you can't beat Tyler Higbee out, then how much worth are you really?
Oh, don't hold that against them. The coaching staff loves
I will. Damn it.
That's neither here nor there when it comes to that. Adam, what do you got in this one?
I think I'd rather have Higbee than Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson, but just not
Higbee.
Higbee's out.
Parkinson.
Parkinson,
my bad. Chase has infected me. All Rams tight ends are Tyler Higbee.
They're all the same.
No, I'd rather have Parkinson. Reason being, like, the Saints are just so tricky to think about where things could go. Like, they've got to figure out something to see what they have in Shuck, if they need to draft a quarterback or not for next season. And I think what that is going to result in is trying a lot of different options as far as who your primary targets are, who your reads are.
What do they have to target?
They can make up guys. They've got your favorite wide receiver in Devon Vele. They've got Chris Olave. They've got other people presumably around.
There's bodies in the locker room.
Yeah, exactly. And look, Juwan Johnson's been great for fantasies because he caught touchdowns. To be honest with you, he's kind of sucked as a football player. Like, if we're actually being honest, the drops in the middle of the season lost them games. Like, a bad team lost them games. Probably good for the Saints because their draft picks are better because of it. But he had multiple multi-drop games in there that genuinely killed drives. Probably took points off the board for their team. Like, he hasn't really been that good of a football player. He's just been a good fantasy player. And I like Juwan Johnson. That's not hate. I wish. So, point being, as the team moves forward, they might consider other options, at least in whom they target. Versus the Rams, what are they going to do? They've already got Stafford on an MVP track. They look like the best team in football. They're the top of everyone's power rankings. What are you going to change? Nothing. You're going to keep doing exactly what's working. With Colby Parkinson, working. Probably not going to change until Higbee's back. That's what I feel is more reliable.
Don't forget about Allen Davis now. Okay.
Allen. It's Davis Allen.
Whatever. Allen Davis
is what it
Rams
says.
tight end names aren't important.
Tomato. The point is that he only got one less target than Colby Parkinson, and they like to play 13 person. So this is what kills me with the Rams. You think Puka Nacua, you think Matthew Stafford, you think Devontae Adams and Sean McVay, 11 personnel. No, they've played more 22 personnel than anybody in the league.
Yep.
Anybody. It's absolutely insane.
It's funny because they'll then bring Devontae Adams in for the red zone.
Well, yeah.
So,
exactly.
They instead of bringing your tight ends in to go big for the red zone, they bring Devontae Adams in for the red zone.
Yeah.
Hey, it works. It works like a charm.
It works. And you don't change any of it.
No, that's fair. All right. So Adams with Colby Parkinson, Chase.
Just shout out Brenton Strange is available in a lot of leagues, and that's I think is a better option than either.
That is a good point. He is available in a lot of places. You could probably look to pick that option there too. But even if it was Brenton Strange, I prefer Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson's been the number 2 target on the Saints. And I know people look at that and are like, well, how much is that really saying? It's pretty good for tight end. So there was a period in the middle of the season where you had Foster Moreau come back, Taysom Hill was back, and then all of a sudden the playing time for Juwan Johnson was getting murky. Right. And we knew that one of the biggest reasons why he had such a great beginning of the season is because he was playing it all the time. And he's a good receiving tight end, and they don't have a lot of receivers. So he was getting targeted like crazy, and it worked out great. We're getting back to that. They're rotating back to that now. So over the last 3 weeks, and I made this specifically for this question, Juwan Johnson's been the tight end 4 overall. Colby Parkinson's been the tight end 6 overall. So they've actually both been really good over the past 3 weeks in particular. The tiebreaker for me is the fact that he has reestablished himself in both routes run and targets during that time. Juwan, you are back to being the number 2 target on this team behind Chris Olave. And I think that is more trustworthy than with the Rams, where it might be Davis Allen. It might be Terrence Ferguson might get a lick here and there because they utilize so many tight ends. And really, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, the passing game goes through them before it goes to the tight ends to begin with, where Juwan Johnson is very much vital to the Saints. I'll give you bleak passing game, but still very much vital to it as far as his role is concerned. So like this week in particular, I have Juwan Johnson as my tight end 10, Parkinson as my tight end 17. And Brenton Strange, just because you threw him out there, and it's a viable name, he's my tight end 14 for this week. So I would lean towards Juwan Johnson still on that. Just kind of throw that out there. Maybe a rebuttal to that.
This is one of those showdowns, much like last week's between Tyler Shuck and
I'm not hitting the showdown button. Yeah, I'm not hitting
the showdown. No, but I'm just saying this is one of those showdowns where there are no winners.
Yeah, concur. Just like there was, so technically there was a winner, but it felt like not. So Bryce Young, as awful as he was, 10.3 points. The Shucks 8.1. No one's a winner there. Nobody.
Like I said, no one wins.
If you played either of them, you lost.
Exactly. No. If you're turning in for the first time for the show, we did. We had a showdown last week over because somebody asked us Tyler Shuck or Bryce Young. Those are their options. I'm hoping to God it was for a super flex league. They didn't really specify, but I'm going to assume that it was. And yeah, we spent too much time on that, and it was awful either way.
Every word I said about Bryce Young was right. Shuck was just worse.
Chuck was just what I thought was going to be the case. Chuck was going to just be worse. Our last question to talk about here. So the defense. I always try to get one defense in here. So we got start the Texans versus the Colts, or stick with the Browns defense versus the 49ers in week 13. Now, before I kick this to you guys, I will say this. I approached, even though this question is specifically about week 13, I kind of approached this like with a rest of season concept. I think that's how you're going to kind of do it. But Chase, you're all about it, so go ahead.
No, I'm saying to me, I said it last week and I'll say it again this week. You kind of have to do that now when you're looking at defenses, when you're looking at any pickup on the wire. I don't care if you're streaming guys or if you're just looking at waiver pickups, whatever. We are in the short game, the end game of the fantasy season right now. And so with defenses specifically, I talked last week about the idea of maybe holding 2 at a time and looking ahead a week or 2 to try and get a leg up on who you might be playing and anybody else who might be looking on the waiver wire that week. So for me this week, I want Houston over Cleveland in week 13. But I want to say real quick that Cleveland does face Tennessee next week. And Tennessee, as we've established on this program and as they've established themselves all year, sucks. Okay. So Cleveland has the better matchup next week. Now Houston plays Kansas City next week, and Kansas City has not been Kansas City in our minds all season, but it's still Kansas City. It's still Patrick Mahomes.
You mean for 3 years? They haven't been Kansas City.
Yes, but it's still Kansas City versus Cam Ward in Tennessee. All right. Now, if you want to look at rest of season or the fantasy playoffs specifically, Houston gets Arizona, Las Vegas, and the Chargers in the fantasy playoffs. Those teams have given up the 6th most, the most, and the 11th most points to opposing fantasy DSTs. Houston has a much better playoff schedule than does Cleveland, but Cleveland again faces Tennessee next week. And they face in the fantasy playoffs Chicago, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, who are all down in the 20s in terms of how many points they've given up to opposing fantasy defenses. So Houston is better this week. Cleveland has that cake matchup next week. I like Houston long-term as well. So again, I'm going to come back to the idea that if you have the roster spot, say you're holding on to, I don't know, Luther Burden. If you've got somebody you can drop and hold on to both of them so you can play Cleveland next week against the putrid Titans defense or offense, do that. But it's Houston this week, and it's Houston in the fantasy playoffs.
Adam, do you see this the same way or no?
Yep, exactly the same way. If you can roster both, do it. Play them against Tennessee next week, no problem. Otherwise, this is rare for a fantasy defense. I'll go out and say it. I think Houston's matchup proof. I think you can start them any week and feel okay about it. They just got 16 playing the Bills. The Browns, who one of the best fantasy defenses as well, like they've put up bad showings against good offenses, and they're like the defense 4, but like against Detroit, the first time when Lamar was healthy, against Baltimore, like bad fantasy showings. Houston, it doesn't seem to matter. Like they had, I know, one like 5-point game early in the season, but otherwise since then it's been like you play great offenses and it's like 7 is your floor. Like Houston is legitimately that type of defense, and they're fighting for their playoff lives. So I think that if I had to pick one to roster, it would be Houston. If you can roster both, that's great.
I agree. So kind of two things. One, what Chase laid out, Houston has the best ranked schedule PFF wise rest of season, well, playoff wise anyway, rest of season. And two, Adam, to kind of piggyback off of your point there, the big problem the Browns have is their offense. Their defense has an offensive problem. Their offense puts them in too many precarious situations. That's why you'll see against certain offenses, they'll have those dud weeks, because when you have an offense that can't score and constantly has you out in the field and you're playing a better offense, the levee eventually does break, even if you are elite. And the Browns defense is elite. I mean, it's what Myles Garrett is doing this season is unbelievable. He's going to smash the record by almost 10 sacks. It's crazy. But at the same time, you have an offense, and I don't think it's that much better with Shedeur Sanders. FYI, everybody out there. It kind of puts you in a bad spot. Houston, while it's not a great offense, is definitely more competent. And for that reason, plus the schedule, plus how elite they've been, I totally agree with you, Adam. I think they're matchup proof at this point after what they did to Buffalo. That's the Houston defense you want to go to for the rest of the season. It's getting hot in here.
Hot so hot in here.
All right. Time to talk some Dynasty temperature check. We got a couple more interesting players to go ahead and talk about as we gear up for your Dynasty trade deadlines, which Dynasty tends to go a little bit later if you're not familiar. In my leagues, I have some that don't close, but most end around next week, maybe the week after. At any rate, still trading in Dynasty. So if you're in the redraft world and you're annoyed with your early trade deadlines last week or the week before,
you should be playing Dynasty.
Think about it. At any rate, Jacoby Brissett's going to be our first name. He's someone who I find really interesting because he is genuinely the rare quarterback that you got for free, but is actually startable. He was perfectly free. You could, regardless of roster decision, you could have him because you could have just wavered him when Kyler got hurt. Been like, all right, like I have him in a rebuild where Kyler was my starting quarterback, and literally I only grabbed Jacoby Brissett off of waivers because I would not have a legal starting lineup otherwise. And now I got Joe Burrow back off IR, and I'm like, well, I could trade Jacoby Brissett for something, have something for next season. So and a lot of people seem to be on that same line of thought. Jacoby Brissett is the third most traded player overall this week. First at the quarterback position. And value, I mean, it's not like a lot, but it's not nothing. So we've got some options here. We've got a 2027 third straight up. We've got a 2028 second straight up. We've got the least favorite Buffalo Bill, Keon Coleman. We've got a 2028 second and a 2026 third. We've got a 2027 second, or we've got Jacoby Brissett and a 28 third for Stephon Diggs, who was, by the way, he was also one of the most traded players this week and narrowly missed this list. He was someone who I considered talking about instead. But guys, what are you guys thinking about Mr. Jacoby Brissett, who genuinely, Dan and I were talking about it before the show. His lowest game since he got the starting job has been 18 points. He's like, genuinely, if he's your quarterback too, you're in a very good spot going into your, super flex dynasty fantasy playoffs.
I find Brissett an interesting proposition right now because he's 32 years old. He's a career backup. But as I've said before, much like how I always kind of felt about Fitzmagic, Jacoby Brissett is just a professional quarterback. He's a professional player. Every single time he gets his opportunity or has to step in as the backup, he performs and he does well for the team that has him. Now, he's been on a run, a fantasy usable run lately, not just an on the field, like, oh, keep my team's, hopes above water kind of run lately. But he's 32 years old and he's a career backup. Do any of us honestly think that he gets starting looks next season from some quarterback worthy needy team, or do they go for somebody younger? I don't necessarily think he gets a starting look next year. I think he's in crazy demand for the rest of his career because of what he can do as a backup and how valuable he has made himself in that role. So honestly, almost anything you can get for him is nice at this point. But then you look at it and you're like, okay, well, am I a contender? Am I not a contender? Because if you're a contender, I don't think he gives that role back, even if Kyler Murray is healthy. The rest of I think they have to stick with him if they have any hope of wanting to win football games. So you don't want to undervalue Brissett in your trade discussions. But at the same point, he's a 32-year-old career backup. So if you can get something for him, get something for him. Honestly, every single one of these, deals that we talked about or that you brought up here, with the exception of maybe only getting a third rounder out of him, I think you can probably wring something more out of that from everybody else in your league. Otherwise, I mean, I love getting any of these returns for Jacoby Brissett because, like you said, you got him for free. It's all profit at this point. It's a great time, but don't undervalue him. Make sure you squeeze whoever wants to get him for all they're worth.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't need Jacoby Brissett as your second quarterback on a playoff run, then any draft capital you get for him, fantastic. Here's the conversation that I want to have. Is Keon Coleman done? Like, is it over? It might be. Like, so as I'm saying Keon Coleman, I'm like, that might be the one deal I don't want to do on this list. And it's not that he was benched or healthy, scratch and neck. We've seen this in the past happen from time to time and players bounce back from it. It's the fact that it happened 2 weeks in a row that I haven't seen when a guy that you're actually prominently trying to pipe up as one of your dudes for the future on a team that just signed freaking Brandon Cooks because they have no wide receivers whatsoever freaking ever and can't get any help for Josh Allen. Not just 1 week, but 2 weeks you made him a healthy inactive for missing a meeting.
Right. Yeah. They did not look good. They didn't.
And you could argue the reason they didn't look good is because that wide receiver group.
100%. So are they just done with them? Anytime Brandon Cooks today.
I think they might be.
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam. Yeah.
I think that this is a team that has shown you that they will not put up with shenanigans from their wide receivers. Stephon Diggs started his mouthy treatment for like a minute, and they were like, "Nope, done. See ya, bye." And Diggs like started Josh Allen's career, like literally jump started it.
Yeah,
Keon Coleman's done nothing, and if you're gonna be a diva, all right, deuces.
And we did not like Keon Coleman in the draft. We were not giant Keon Coleman fans anyway, because we didn't see anything necessarily special about him in the first place. And then he comes out and plays and kind of proves that he's just nothing special, even when he's on the field, or at least to this point. I don't know if it'll be a smack in the posterior to, the last 2 weeks or not. I tend to think probably not. Even if it is a smack and a wake up call, is there anything there to wake up for him? So yeah, you bring up a great point, Dan, that, it may be less.
It's a bad sign when you're getting traded for a 30-year-old backup.
2 weeks, 2 weeks. Like I said, the 1 week thing, I've seen that happen before. Back-to-back weeks, there's something more to the story that we're not getting. But anyway, yeah. So
wide receiver needy team.
Yeah, just Jacoby Brissett. You have him. Trade him for any draft capital, except for Keon Coleman. All right. So what do you got next, Adam?
Yeah. So the next guy, another one that I find fascinating. I think we've got three really good conversations here. Bucky Irving is the next guy to talk about. So I don't know what the logic is, because there's real volume behind this one. He's the 6th most traded running back, 14th most traded player overall this week. I guess logic is you're coming up on the deadline. He's still not back. And if you're in the playoff hunt, you just need to sell assets for it. But man, oh man, is it interesting, because young running backs who get points, you don't get buy opportunities on them very often. So I'm curious, one, like, are the values here worth it? Are they right? And two, like, what is your outlook on Bucky Irving? Because I know his social media presence has been a bit odd during his injury timeout. I know he is a smaller back who doesn't necessarily have a great athletic profile, so there are those concerns. But he has been an awesome point scorer when healthy. So there's, in my opinion, very interesting conversation here. Let's get to the values. So for Mr. Bucky Irving, Derrick Henry straight up is the first option. A.J. Brown straight up first option or second option. Those two, obviously, we've talked about in this segment a couple times so far this season. We've got a 2026 second and a 2027 first. We've got Saquon Barkley and a 2026 third. Barkley, by the way, we'll get to here in a minute. And then we've got Bucky Irving plus Sam Laporta for Brock Bowers. We've got Bucky Irving for Travis Hunter in a 2027 second. So those are some of the trade opportunities for him. Some like real superstar type players for a guy who has been hurt for most of the season. So I'm curious what you guys think about it.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to keep going back to this. If you're in a Dynasty league and you have an opportunity, trade for Brock Bowers, and right now is the opportunity, do it. I don't care what it costs. Hear me, all the people in my Dynasty league. I will do anything for Brock Bowers right now. Just hear me, okay? I'm telling you guys, elite fantasy tight ends, hard to get.
And the door might be right about to close because Kelly's gone.
Right. And that's exactly my point. Like now, if you have any shot of getting Brock Bowers, now is the time. I would do that deal in a freaking heartbeat. But anyway, besides all that, let's do more of the context here, because all these deals are really kind of predicated on, are you trying to win now or later? And anybody can be in that situation right now. I do think all the values you just mentioned are fair depending upon your situation. I think more of the interesting conversation to have is Bucky Irving himself. You kind of laid it out in the beginning. Smaller guy, was a day 3 pick. Remember, he didn't get drafted until the 4th round, 5'10", 195. I was not big on his draft profile. I was definitively wrong. I underestimated how elusive he could be, how many missed tackles he could create, despite not being a speedy guy, despite not being a very big guy, but he's shifty, and I didn't give him enough credit for that.
Hands up. I said some very harsh words about Bucky Irving. Hands up.
Yep.
My bad.
Right here. And I'm a little guy. I should have loved him.
I'll lay on that landmine. I was wrong. But at the same time, you're dealing with the injuries now, and that's part of the deal when you're talking about a smaller running back. I mean, running backs in general have to deal with injuries, but when you're smaller, it tends to happen a little bit faster and a little bit more frequently. And they got this big dude named Sean Tucker, who looks pretty good, and is also a day 3 guy. Now, I'm not saying the Bucs are going to be moving off of Bucky Irving yet. Remember, he's still in year 2 of his rookie contract. He still has 2 more years. So they do have him kind of locked in where he's not necessarily going to go anywhere. And I do think that he's suddenly not going to just make people miss. Like, I still think this is a guy that when he's playing, he's a borderline RB1. Sure. But I don't know if he's got that second contract in him. And with running backs, that's the big difference. So what defines you as a golden type running back in dynasty leagues? It's not what you do in that first contract. Are you built to still produce in that second contract? Can I get you to 28, 29? That's what separates you. I don't know if Bucky Irving's that guy. So I say that to say this. If you're chasing a championship, I'm okay if you're trading him for Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley. I'm fine with that. If you're trading him to build for the future with a Brock Bowers or an A.J. Brown, I'm good with that too. The only one I'm not good with here is the Travis Hunter thing. I'm sorry, I just don't see with Travis Hunter. I really don't. I'm not a fan as far as this whole gadget thing with both sides of the football. And then there was some things that I did like before he got injured, where they're finally allowing him to actually run a route tree as a wide receiver. Maybe that does change some things going down into the future because he was doing a lot better being actually allowed to run down the field. Very key, very crucial. But Bucky Irving is not a must hold in any kind of capacity to me.
No, I'm going to agree with you on that. I mean, I was right there on the same bandwagon, not bandwagon, I guess, but with you guys in terms of not being thrilled about the idea of Bucky Irving and what he could be in the league. And I have since said on this show many times, he has brought me around. I acknowledge that I think he's got what it takes to be a good fantasy asset and a good fantasy running back. However, like you just said, they've also got Sean Tucker there. And I think that some of what's coming out of the Bucky Irving injury situation is the idea that he's been practicing, but he didn't feel right. So now we've got the idea of not to make light of or poo-poo the idea of mental health issues, but what is his head like in terms of how he sees himself in the league, or how he's feeling about anything, life, or is he just not confident in his body yet? But there's the mental health aspect of it too. And I think that might be scaring some people away, because we've got the idea now that, okay, maybe physically he should have been ready to go already, but he has not deemed himself ready to be back on the field. Plus the idea of not a lot of people were necessarily crazy about his draft profile to begin with. So now there's multiple questions about Bucky Irving. Plus, yeah, Sean Tucker's looked pretty darn good when he's been in there. And even if they decide, okay, yeah, let's keep both of these guys, might we see it become more of a thunder and lightning type situation where neither one of them is going to be the guy? And it's just such a rare opportunity to get a guy like that, a bell cow type guy. Maybe they're just going to be a committee backfield like everybody else going forward too. So I think there's enough questions about Bucky Irving's future that it doesn't necessarily shock me that people are trading him off right now. However, that being said, the dude is still 23 years old. And I think it comes down to, for me, in a lot of these cases that are laid out here for us, are you a contender? Are you not? I agree with you on the Travis Hunter thing. I think the Travis Hunter thing was a lot less of a question before Parker Washington proved he could be an actual NFL football player. Because I think that the Jaguars can get what Travis Hunter was giving to them elsewhere on their roster offensively. Defensively, I think that they probably need Travis Hunter a lot more on that side of the football than they do on the offensive side.
They won't do it. They've made it clear they view him as an offensive player first and defensive player second. I don't think they'll do it.
But even if they do, I'm not in on him as an offensive player anyway. So I agree with you, Dan, that's the one deal that would probably make me take pause. The rest of these, I'm okay with, yeah, especially depending on whether you're contending or not. But there are a lot of questions around Bucky Irving right now, unfortunately, and unfortunately, not a lot of them have to do with are his legs healthy or is his shoulder healthy? It's other questions that are I think clouding some people's judgment.
All right, so yeah, definitely agreed there. On to our third back, or our third player, second back, and I alluded to him a minute ago. Saquon Barkley, third most traded running back, fifth most traded player overall. Some interesting trades for him, who, by the way, has to everyone had a disappointing season. I think I ranked him the highest coming in and redraft coming into the season, but we all had him in worst was maybe top 4. I
had 6. I was 6. Pretty low. Yeah.
But still top half RB1 for all of us.
Yes.
And to that regard had a very disappointing season. There's still some promising things usage wise in attempts and snaps, but nonetheless, the results have not been good. So with that, it makes an interesting proposition because he is 28, but he's been an elite talent very, very recently. And this year's not going very well. So curious about what's going on here. And I'm surprised to say, I won't bury the lead. Value hasn't dropped nearly as much as I would have thought for a running back his age having this dreadful of a year in terms of his own efficiency stats. So 2026 first and 2026 second. That's the first trade off the rip. We've got Devin Neal and a 2028 first, which that one's, we'll talk about it. 2027 first. We've got Troy Franklin and a 2027 first. We've got Garrett Wilson straight up. We've got CJ Stroud straight up. Or we've got Woody Marks and a 2026 first. So, guys, I'm curious your thoughts here on Mr. Saquon Barkley.
Look, with Saquon, he's still getting all the touches. Okay, so he's basically what Saquon is a lesser version of CMC at the moment, where he's getting insane workload. It's just not efficient. Fine. But it's still an offense that wants to utilize him. He has a base floor. You're just not going to get those ceiling type of games. Adam, you said it perfectly. He's 28 years old. And everyone's looking at this like, is he just done? Saquon Barkley's a special breed. He came off of a hell of a year for volume. And it raises that kind of volume for a running back over 400 touches a year before, raises all kind of red flags when you go into the following season. We have enough of a sample size now where we should be able to pick that up. I think he'll be really good next year. This is still a really good football team that will likely get a different offensive coordinator. That's their number one problem right now. Their offensive line's been beat up. I'm sure Howie Roseman will address that in some sort of capacity next season. And I think he'll be a top 5 running back next season. Because the one thing I'll give Barkley to his credit is while it hasn't been pretty this year, he stayed healthy. So if he's 28 and staying healthy and goes in his 29th year with a better offensive line, maybe a rejuvenated system, and a year in which he didn't get as many touches, I think he'll have a bounce back year. I think he's got one more pop in him. So when you talk about these trades here, again, I'm okay with most of them except for Devin Neal in 2028 first. I'm okay with a Devin Neal in 2027 first. BT dubs, just not 28. I don't know why you have to wait 2 years to get that first round.
I don't think it's an egregious thing to take a 28 first for him, but
that better be a home league. If otherwise, you gotta know that's gonna last.
I will not trade him for CJ Stroud. And it's not because I don't love CJ Stroud. I do, but I do not trust that the Texans are going to turn this around offensively, schematically anytime soon.
Here's what I want to look at. Look at the common thread of almost, in my opinion, every single deal that you laid out, the person trading Barkley away is trading for future type assets. None of these deals is a win now deal. If you are a win now team, you need Barkley. You want Barkley on your roster unless somebody's going out of their mind and giving you some crazy win now type but player for Saquon Barkley. Trading him for a 26-1 and a 26-2, trading him for Devin Neal, who's a younger running back, and the 28-1 obviously is a future play. The 27 first, I'm not crazy about that deal, but it's a future play. Franklin in a 27-1. The Garrett Wilson, CJ Stroud, Marks in a 26. Every single one of those deals is a future deal. It's not a win now deal. If you're a win now team, you want Barkley on your team. If not, you have to ask yourself, okay, where am I realistically? What do I need? And what can I get for him? Do not undersell him. I don't think Stroud is a crazy undersell, but you're definitely not like profiting a ton from that deal. I think you can get better elsewhere for that. Neal and pushing it out to the 28-1. I don't think it's an egregious. I don't think it's an overpay. I don't think you're underselling him, but I think you can get more elsewhere. So don't undersell him just to get rid of him because you're not a win now team. If you're a win now team, somebody better be shooting something at you that's pretty damn enticing for you to get rid of Saquon Barkley because they have a good running back schedule the rest of the season too. And like you said, Dan, he stayed healthy. I don't want to bet against Saquon Barkley in that kind of a situation. So don't undersell him. But these are all future deals. These are not win now deals.
Nothing, Adam.
No, I think that's a good way of looking at it. Like, look, he's an older back. If you want future assets for him, that's valid. And I don't think that the values are that crazy, but I do think that you're probably right and that there's one more good run out of him with a NFL quality offensive coordinator.
Yep, yeah, I agree. What they don't have right now, but
they don't. That's my addendum is that they needed a real offensive coordinator for him to function.
We've seen Howie pull Nick Sirianni back before. Yes. Nick Sirianni back. I like to call him Sirianni because I call him Sirianni with a little weenie, but Sirianni back before and plug in their own offensive coordinator. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it again. But I'm getting a little thirsty.
Hells yeah. All right. Hey, let's take a look at some DFS cocktail. We're going to do something a little different this week. We kind of talked about it earlier, but there's 3 games coming up on Thanksgiving Day. So I'm going to actually lay out a DFS lineup for Thanksgiving Day. Now, if you're looking for the quote unquote full slate or whatever, if you want to look at the Sunday games and the Monday night game, I will still have my article coming out. My regular article will be coming out Saturday morning with a lineup taking Sunday and Monday's games into account. But for our purposes here, let's run through just that Thanksgiving Day slate. And in celebration of that, I have a cocktail specifically for Thanksgiving Day that we're going to mix up as well. So when we look at those 3 games that are on Thanksgiving, it's a hell of a slate, to be honest with you. I think we've got 3 pretty good games, I think, lined up here. And they're even better now that it looks like Joe Burrow may come back and play for the Bengals here against the Baltimore Ravens. That makes that night game a heck of a lot more enticing. But these are the 3 highest at the moment that we are recording, not taping this episode. At the moment, these are the 3 highest point totals on the slate in the entire league this week. So we've got Green Bay at Detroit. We've got Kansas City playing on the road at the Dallas Cowboys. And that night game, like I said, is the Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens. So 3 high point totals. We've got some high powered offenses in there in terms of, what they can do. And like I said, with Burrow coming back, hey, it's anybody's guess what Cincinnati can be. But I'm really intrigued by this slate. When I take a look at it, we've kind of tailed the Dallas Cowboys all season in the DFS cocktail because they pass the ball a whole hell of a lot. Plus they allow other teams to pass the ball a whole hell of a lot. So I'm going to take a look at that game again. I am going to roll with Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback this week in my DFS cocktail for 6,500. Now, if you take a look at your pricing on DraftKings for that slate, Patrick Mahomes is the QB2 in salary, but he's the QB1 this week in ECR, in expert consensus rankings this week, because he's facing the Dallas Cowboys team that gives up the absolute most points to opposing fantasy quarterbacks. Now, if you look at recency and what have you done for me lately, Patrick Mahomes, he's only got 1 passing touchdown in the last 3 weeks, but he's also faced Buffalo, Denver, and Indianapolis the last 3 weeks. Those are pretty tough defenses against opposing fantasy quarterbacks. Dallas is anything but that. If you want to look at what Mahomes has actually done on the field, yeah, he hasn't had those passing touchdowns, but last week he had a season high 352 passing yards against that Indianapolis Colts defense. He's attempted 91 passes the last 2 weeks, and he's facing a Cowboys team that is going to give up points to the quarterback. And they have also been prone to the idea of giving up quarterback rushing touchdowns as well, which is another way that Mahomes can hurt you. He hasn't had one in a while, but he does have 4 on the season. I like Patrick Mahomes for 6,500. When you take a look, at the cost this week versus where they're ranked in terms of the ECR, you also have to keep in mind, like I said, we're only looking at a 3-game slate for cost-wise on Thursday, but their ECR is going to rank them with everybody else who's playing Friday, Sunday, and Monday. So you can't necessarily just say, oh, well, a guy is ranked really low in terms of his ECR, but his salary is really high. His salary is high in terms of where he matches up against other people who are playing on Thursday. And that'll come into play when we talk about, our playback against these Kansas City Chiefs. But we are going to pair Patrick Mahomes with his top receiver, Rashee Rice, at 7,500. I love me some Rashee Rice. I am one of those people who drafted him everywhere and hung on to him until he came back. I have been reaping the rewards ever since. He is the wide receiver 3 in salary this week. He's also the wide receiver 3 in the expert consensus rankings. And he is the wide receiver 5 in points per game since he came back from that injury and since he has played. Overall, he's been the wide receiver 3, since his return. He's scored a ton of points there. He's averaging over 9 targets a game for this team. And he's coming off this week, his best game of the season last week, in having 8 catches on 12 targets on 141 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but I think we'll forgive that when he gets 141 on 8 catches. He hasn't scored a touchdown, in fact, in the last 2 weeks, but I'm willing to forgive 2 weeks ago because, like I said, they faced Denver that game, and we all know that Denver is a shutdown defense against anybody at any position. Dallas, just like they've given up the most points to the opposing fantasy quarterbacks, they're giving up the most points to fantasy wide receivers. They just allowed A.J. Brown to break out of his well-publicized and much lamented slump that he's been in all season. A.J. Brown had a good game against them last week. I think Rashee Rice can nail them this week. So this week's cocktail is I'm going to call it the cozy by the fire mule, but I'm tempted to call it the dumpster fire mule because we're all going to be spending time with our families here on Thursday for Thanksgiving. And it could be.
We're really just boosting the holidays, aren't we? Just calling it a dumpster fire. I love it.
Right. Yeah. I said cozy by the fire first. Okay. But yeah, we're going to make a variation on a mule this week. Really? And our base spirit in this mule is not going to be vodka. It's going to be a smoky Scotch whiskey. Now, if you like to smoke your own whiskeys, if you want to smoke a bourbon, smoke a rye, whatever, you go right ahead and do that. I'm going to choose a smoky Scotch for my base spirit in this cocktail. Our base spirit for our DFS lineup was that Chiefs lineup with Mahomes and Rice. Our base spirit here is going to be a smoky Scotch whiskey. And the one that I'm going to use this week is Ardbeg Ukatal. Okay, now that's a very Scottish thing to have to say, but Ardbeg Ukatal. If you've ever had Ardbeg, anything of Ardbeg's, they're very peaty whiskeys. They're very smoky. I've said it before. I've had some Ardbeg whiskeys that are like falling face down into a campfire and just drinking through the pain because there's a lot of smoke involved here. Okay. But we're going to use that Ardbeg Ukatal. We're going to take 1.5 ounces of that. And we're going to add that to a rocks glass full of ice already. And then on top of that, because it's a mule and because we're going to kind of try and, stick with a fall theme here, we're going to add 0.5 ounce of maple infused vodka on top of that. And then we're going to add 0.5 ounce of lemon juice and 0.5 ounce of simple syrup. Now I'm going to stir that while I talk to you here about the playback against these two Chiefs in the lineup here. We're going to play not necessarily one of the Cowboys receivers. I do have lineups with this where I'm playing Cowboys receivers, but I want to talk about Javonte Williams at 6,300. He's the running back 5 in terms of your pricing this week. Okay. And he hasn't scored since week 8. I know that yet, but in that week 8 game, he scored 2 touchdowns against Denver. The Chiefs are tough against opposing fantasy running backs. They can be. But in the last 2 weeks, Javonte Williams has had 20 plus rushing attempts in both games. He is still averaging over 4.2 yards per carry in those 2 games. He's averaging 5.0 yards a carry on a year. And he is the backfield show here. Everyone else that could possibly take a carry in that backfield is, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, a turkey. Did you see what happened when they tried to run Kevontae Turpin last week? It didn't go well. It did not go well. And I'm a Kevontae Turpin guy. I like him. But unfortunately, he is the show. It's just Javonte Williams. So I like him this week at 6,300 to play back against them because I think this is going to be a high scoring shootout, but I think it's going to be a close game. So you can't discount those running backs, the running game on either side here. So the other thing we're going to do then, as I've got that stirred up and I'm adding in 4 ounces of ginger beer on top of that because it's a mule after all. We're going to add 4 ounces of ginger beer on that. And while I stir that, I'm going to tell you about the guy that we're going to play as the 4th member of this lineup here in Mark Andrews. He's 3,600. He's the tight end 3 in salary this week for the Thursday slot, but he's tight end 6 on the week overall. I know he had a bad game last week. He was only 1 of 3, 9 yards, but the Jets actually do defend the tight end pretty well. And before that, Mark Andrews was actually on a pretty nice little 3-game stretch there. He had 4 total touchdowns in those 3 games. He finished as a tight end 5, the tight end 9, and the tight end 5 in those weeks in DraftKings. So there is juice there to be had. And oh yeah, by the way, he's facing the Bengals, who give up the most points to the tight end position. So, I like the idea of Andrews in this game to be able to have a bounce back from last week, to score some points. I think that, when you look at how you want to play this Thursday night or this Thursday matchup with 3 games on the slate, we talk about it before about bet your narrative, like come up with a narrative. What do you think is going to happen in these games? And then bet that narrative. Well, usually I like the Lions offense, but they're playing against the Packers. It's much more of a question mark the way the Packers defense has been playing lately and the way those 2 teams played each other week 1. I'm not saying don't use Lions this week. I'm saying they're a bigger question mark than they would be most other weeks for me. I like Dallas and Kansas City to be a close shootout game. So like I said, I'm not dismissing the run game on either side, but I'm going to play the strengths in the passing game in that matchup. And then when we talk about that Cincinnati-Baltimore game, even with Burrow back, I like the Ravens in that game. So I'm going to play their matchup against that weak Cincinnati defense. I'm going to bet the narrative that I see playing out on Thursday. So while I finish this cocktail up, I want everybody to remember that everyone playing this same 3-game slate has the same guys available, right? So everybody's going to be shooting for the big names. The difference is going to likely come down to the filler players to separate yourself from those other people in that lineup. But Dan, Adam, is there anybody else on the Thursday slate, or is there anybody else you guys are into playing, or anybody you disagree with that I have, while I go ahead and prepare the garnish for this drink here?
Before I talk about some players that I have and Adam has, I want to focus on Andrews at the tight end position real quick. I know Andrews been hit or miss, but last week when Hunter Henry went for 100 yards and a touchdown, that solidified to me that I can play any tight end no matter what they're doing against Cincinnati. Like I knew we could. I know they've been bad, but Hunter Henry had been tight end 25 the previous 4 weeks before that Cincinnati game. And then he put up he was Brock Bowers out there basically so that just kind of solidified it. So anyone who's out there like, well, Mark Andrews banged up Lamar Jackson, I don't know, play him at $3,600. I just wanted to lay that one out there because that did it for me last week. Anyway, as far as some other values go, I'm going to throw one Chase's way, but you got to play Jordan Love. If you're doing a tournament style and you're doing a tournament style on Thanksgiving for that slate, he's $5,500. It's been awful, so no one's going to want to play him. Detroit has nobody left in their secondary. Kirby Joseph's not playing. None of the top corners are playing. There's nobody left. If Jordan Love does have an arm, if there's any chance for this offense to turn around, this would be a pivotal game to do it. A game in which there should be points scored. A game in which Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and whoever you want to throw at the wide receiver position should have a matchup advantage going into this game. And Detroit has been stingy against the run. So if there's ever an opportunity for Jordan Love to flip the script and do something you're not expecting him to do, this is the week to do it. So you're playing tournaments, I beg you, do the contrarian thing. Play Love this week. That's my big advice. What do you got, Adam?
I very, very similar logic in terms of contrarian stuff. Looking at DST, there are no good options because all these games are high scoring. So what I want to surmise, the game that I want to target is the Baltimore and Cincinnati game, specifically. Lamar, I love Lamar. One of genuinely probably my favorite non-Colt in the NFL. Up there for the conversation. Love him. Having said that.
Oh, dear God.
He has looked like Snoop Huntley the last 2 weeks. Joe Burrow coming off of a very serious injury that we talked about it a month ago when we talked about Joe Flacco for the trade segment. We were talking about Joe Burrow in December. Maybe he makes the fantasy playoffs. This is early. If there's a game that becomes a stinker that we expect to be high scoring, it is this one. I don't have a confident say in which defense you'd say and you would want to pick, but if I'm especially tournament style, where I think the popular defense is probably going to be Green Bay because they're the only actually good unit that plays on Thursday.
And they're only $2,900. They're not in the.
I think they will be one of the more popular picks. I'm taking something out of the AFC North matchup. AFC North matchups always play each other tough. Man, oh man, like the quarterback situation for both teams is really scary. And Cincinnati, for what it's worth, they suck. Bad defense. Horrific.
They do.
They still got 10 points against a good Patriots offense last week. They got points. So I'm just throwing it out there. When there are genuinely no good options on paper, that's the game that I would target. And I don't think it's psychotic in tournament style play to consider Cincinnati a viable option.
That's a bold statement.
There's
6 games. This is, if I was to guess right now, I think this is the lowest scoring game.
You're right. There's
16. 3 games, 6 teams. It's the
highest point total, Vegas point total, but your narrative, again, bet your narrative. What you're saying makes complete sense. That I don't think Baltimore's going to have to score a ton of points to win that game. So it wouldn't shock me.
Derrick Henry scoring all of them. Derrick Henry and maybe Mark Andrews. I'll give you that because I do agree with that pick. But there are 2 good players in the Bengals defense. They're a pass rusher and 1 corner. Tell me how many receivers Baltimore has. What?
No, that part's 100%. That part's completely and utterly fair. I think Joe Burrow's going to be decent coming back. He still has Jamar Chase at his disposal. I know Baltimore's defense has been better as that doesn't stop Joe Burrow. He's been plenty.
I'm aware of that. Chase Brown was bad when Joe was playing. Like, granted, I hope that's fixed now, but I can't put anything past Zach Taylor at this point. No, I'm only saying this because it's tournament play, because you have to play something that's a little silly.
If we had Joe Burrow all season, and then we roll into this game, if we had Joe Burrow all season and we roll into this game, I'd feel much better about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow coming off a major injury absence, T. Higgins being gone, that offensive line is still a Cincinnati offensive line. And I'm not confident that Cincinnati will look Cincinnati-ish this week.
Contrarian. It's definitely contrarian.
It's definitely contrarian. Okay.
I feel better about Baltimore, but this is the game I would target.
I got you. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
While you guys were talking about that and arguing about that, I was roasting some marshmallows here. So I've got a couple of marshmallows. That's what we're going to garnish our drink with here, our dumpster fire mule, our cozy by the fire mule, because you're going to be hanging out with your families and building nice fires in the living room and that kind of thing. And hopefully those fires are in the fireplace and not, between you and your
don't worry, mine will be more dumpster fire than cozy. It's okay.
Right. So yeah. So in the interest of having a positive holiday spirit, it's a cozy by the fire mule. It's a dumpster fire mule. So here it is. Enjoy that. Slanjava, everybody. But good luck with your DFS plays. Like I said, I will have the article about this will be out here earlier this week in time for Thanksgiving. But I will have a DFS cocktail and a DFS lineup for you available on Saturday with with my weekly article that comes out. So check back if you want to play the main slate as well. Slanjava and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Guys, make sure you're downloading Operation Domination on your favorite podcast app. Go to @DanMaterFF for the video content for this week. I am going to have my episode with Dr. Brian Scott out on Thanksgiving morning, and it looks like I'll be going live on Thursday with Chaz Flaherty of Sports Betting Weekly. We're going to give you all of our best bets Thursday morning at 11 o'clock. So make sure you go to @DanMaterFF on social media and on YouTube, because we're going to go live with that show at that time. I do have 2 articles coming out this week for the huddle, because we got to get that one article out for the Thanksgiving games. We got, like I said, we got 4, and I'm including unlike DraftKings, I am including the Black Friday game into my article. It's just going to be my top 5 player prop bets, but I'll also have my top 15 heading into the weekend on Saturday on the huddle too. So guys, make sure you check all that out. We'll see you again tomorrow. Be good till then.